Welcome to Rambam in Depth. Today we're going to be studying the Rambam's ruling in Hilchos Shabbos, Perek Yud Zayin, Halacha Yud Beis. When you have a mavui is a street enclosed on three sides but open to the public domain. Biblically, you're allowed to carry there, but rabbinically, you're not allowed to, unless you put a lechi, a post, in the front of it, and then it allows you to carry in the mavui, in that alley. So the Rambam rules that you can make a lechi out of anything, including things that are forbidden to have pleasure from, any benefit from, such as asherah, a tree that was used for idol worship, or other forms of idolatry. In other words, even though you're not allowed to have benefit from it, you could use it for the lechi, which prompts a question. The commentators ask, isn't it forbidden to have hana? So aren't you having hana? Aren't you having benefit from this lechi? The lechi that is forbidden to be used for any benefit, and you're having benefit, and now it enables you to carry. The question is asked and answered by the Eliyahu Rabbah, commentary on the Shulchan Aruch and on the Levush, who answers it in very few words, bringing a klal, a principle from the Gemara in many places in Shas, mitzvahs lav lehenes nitnu. A mitzvah was not given for pleasure. Gemara, for example, in Rosh Hashanah says, if a person blows a shofar, and the shofar is forbidden to have any benefit from, it's from a sacrifice, you can fulfill your obligation. Why? Because you're doing a mitzvah, and a mitzvah is not pleasure. Mitzvahs were given, as Rashi says, as a yoke on us, not for pleasure. So the fact that you benefited and you had a mitzvah, to your credit, is not considered a benefit. So therefore, over here, since he's doing a mitzvah with a lechi, there's a rabbinical mitzvah to put a lechi, it's not a problem. But the question is, there is a dispute between the Rashba and the Ran. The Rashba says that when you have a mitzvah, that is also a source of physical pleasure and benefit to you, besides the fact that you fulfilled the mitzvah. For example, if the shofar would be a shofar that makes sounds that are aesthetically pleasing to someone. So by hearing the shofar, you're not just doing a mitzvah and benefiting that way, but you're also benefiting from it physically. It's pleasurable. According to the Rashba, that's not a problem. At least that's what is inferred from the words of the Rashba in Nidarim. And he says that it's not a problem. The Einig Yontif, one of the Achreinim, explains that the Rashba holds that the pleasure that you have is incorporated and subsumed within the mitzvah. So it's dominated by the mitzvah, and the mitzvah is not considered hana. Whatever the real explanation is, that's something for another time. So according to the Rashba, there's no problem over here. Yes, there's a benefit that you get from the mitzvah that you're allowed to carry. That's not a problem. But there's a problem according to the Ran and other Rishonim who say that if there's physical pleasure, physical benefit, besides the mitzvah, then the principle of mitzvahs lav lehenes nitnu does not apply. And over here, there's benefit. You're allowed to carry. Furthermore, according to the Rashba, there's also a problem, because the Rashba himself qualifies that principle, that you could use the principle of mitzvahs lav lehenes nitnu even when there's physical pleasure. He says that's only true when you can't do the mitzvah any other way. This is the only way you can do the mitzvah. And then you're allowed to do the mitzvah even though you're having physical pleasure. But if you can do the mitzvah some other way, you don't have to fulfill it this way, then the principle does not apply. What about over here? Do you have to use the lechi made out of an asherah, out of a avodah zarah? You don't have to. You can use something else. So in that case, even the Rashba would say that mitzvah lav lehenes nitnu does not apply here. Another problem over here is, what kind of a mitzvah is it? It's a rabbinical mitzvah. The Baal Hamor, one of the early Rishonim in Masechta Rosh Hashanah, says that the principle mitzvahs lav lehenes nitnu does not apply to rabbinical mitzvahs. Well, then how does it apply here? This would refute the Baal Hamor, because here we have a halacha, and it's not just the Rambam, as I mentioned before. It's a Gemara in Eruvin that makes it clear that it's permissible. Obviously, it's because of mitzvahs lav lehenes nitnu, even though it's only a rabbinical mitzvah. Another problem is, it's not really a mitzvah. How do we look at it as a mitzvah? It just enables you to carry. You don't have to make a lechi. If you don't want to carry, you don't need the lechi. So there are two ways of answering this question. One way is based on a Rashba in Yevamos, the laws of Chlitza. And the Gemara says that if you have a shoe for Chlitza that is from something that is forbidden to have hana, then the Chlitza is still kosher. So the Rashba in Yevamos asks, how could it be kosher? You're having hana, you're having benefit. This woman, now that she gets Chlitza, is allowed to remarry. Without the Chlitza, she can't remarry. And he answers that mitzvahs lav lahenes nitnu. The Gemara says mitzvahs lav lahenes nitnu. So the Rashba asks, but there's benefit over here. She's now permitted to remarry. It seems that the Rashba contradicts himself, but that's a separate issue. And the Rashba answers, yes, it's true. She's allowed to remarry as a result of Chlitza, but no one's stopping her from remarrying even without Chlitza. She can physically do it. The only reason that she's not doing it is because there's a mitzvah to have Chlitza. So the whole benefit is predicated on the mitzvah. It's not as if there's a mitzvah that brings benefit. The whole mitzvah, the benefit is there without the mitzvah. The only thing that you have the need for Chlitza is because you want to fulfill the mitzvah and you don't want to do it without the mitzvah. Same thing over here. You could carry in the Movi. No one is stopping you. It's a free country. Oh, but it's not allowed. The rabbis didn't permit it without a lechi. Oh, so you're doing it only because you want to do the mitzvah. In that case, everyone agrees we'd say mitzvahs lav lahenes nitnu. Another answer, which is even a better answer, I think, the Ritva in Sukkah, which was erroneously ascribed to the Rashba, but it's the Ritva, talks about a lulav, again the same issue, a lulav from something that is forbidden to have hana. You fulfill your obligation, nevertheless, because it's a mitzvah, and mitzvahs are not given for hana. So the Ritva asks, one second, this whole principle that mitzvahs are not given for hana, but there is hana, you get a reward. The Eibishter, the Almighty, promises a reward for doing a mitzvah. So every mitzvah, besides the fact that you fulfilled your obligation, which is very true, you're also getting benefit. Benefit accrues from the mitzvah. And the Ritva answers, it has to be hana that comes from the actual object of the mitzvah. If the lulav would give you pleasure, that would be an issue. That would be a problem. But the lulav doesn't give you pleasure, and likewise the other mitzvahs about which this rule is applied. The pleasure comes later. It's not a direct thing from the object itself. Therefore, we don't care about the benefit that comes later. The same thing is true with a lechi. The lechi doesn't give you any pleasure or any benefit. It's just that if you have a lechi, you can then later on go and carry. But the lechi itself doesn't create any pleasure or any benefit. Therefore, we can apply the principle of mitzvahs lav lahenes nitnu according to all opinions.